Now the battle to kill Obamacare. A few brave politicians in the state of Idaho tried to nullify Obamacare. Nullification is a process by which a state ignores a federal law it knows to be unconstitutional. And since almost every aspect of Obamacare is unconstitutional and has been found unconstitutional, those Idaho leaders had every right to nullify the health care reform. But sadly, the nullification bid in Idaho fell short last Friday in the Idaho State Senate. Joining us now is one of the main backers of Idaho's nullification push, the self-described libertarian Republican governor of the great state of Idaho, Butch Otter. Governor Otter, what a pleasure. Welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Thank you, Judge. It's great to be with you.
All right, what happened last week in Idaho? As I understand it, the Republicans control the state Senate by a very large majority, and we all thought that nullification, in which the Idaho government says to the Idaho state employees, don't cooperate with the feds when they come into our state and want you to do something unconstitutional. Somehow it fell. What happened?
Well, as you've correctly stated, Judge, nullification begins with the premise that a law passed by Congress, if it exceeds the powers delegated to Congress, then it's unconstitutional. And that's precisely because of using the term nullification as a principle rather than a process. I think it made a lot of the lawyers there very, very nervous.
And they, having gone to law schools in which they have learned that the federal government always wins these federal state battles since the Civil War, caved rather than stand up for the principle that because the Constitution doesn't give health care to the federal government has no right trying to regulate it.
Precisely. But the story's not over with yet, Judge. I would tell you that we still have a lot of fronts that we're trying to fight this on. Obviously, the congressional front by defunding Obamacare. We're going to continue with our lawsuit, which we won, or at least got Judge Vincent down in Florida in our favor to declare that it was unconstitutional, and because it lacks severability, that if any one part of that law was found unconstitutional, the entire law is thrown out as being unconstitutional.
Right, well, that's really what I was curious about, Governor Otter, and was surprised that Republicans in a state like Idaho, which many times has stood for the rights of the individual over the collective rights of the government, so many Republicans caved. I mean, you have an 80-page decision by a well-respected federal judge in Florida saying, you're right, this is unconstitutional. You have the federal government telling you, you will raise taxes and you will spend it as we tell you to in order to establish these insurance exchanges for people that can't afford them. You know that's unconstitutional. That's not in the Constitution. You know the feds can't make you raise your taxes and then tell you how to spend the money. And yet, these guys in your legislature, obviously not made of the same stuff that Butch Otter is made of, they just fell over. They just rolled over and played dead to the almighty federal government.
Well, Judge, as you know, the contract between the state of Idaho, as between all the states and the federal government, is really embodied in the 28 words of the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, which basically says those powers that are not delegated are reserved for the states. We can find no delegation, no matter how hard you look. In Article 1, Section 8, in the Commerce Clause, no matter where you look in the Constitution, it's hard to find any power that the Congress can exert in order to get us to buy a product.
All right, here's what Governor Scott did, and I think you may be having dinner with your colleagues tonight in Florida, and Governor Walker did in Wisconsin. They said, let's see, a federal judge has found this unconstitutional. I'm not going to enforce it, and I'm not going to implement it until that decision is interfered with by a higher court. Would Governor Otter do that in Idaho?
Well, I'll tell you what we are doing in Idaho, not unlike what Florida and Wisconsin are both doing. And what we're saying is, what's the best thing to do for Idaho? Number one, what do our people need? Number two, what can we afford within the ability of our taxpayers to pay? And that's going to be our sideboards. That's what's going to guide us in the final decisions that we make relative to health care in the state of Idaho.
All right. What's the next step for all of this? Hoping that the appeals courts will find it unconstitutional, hoping that the Congress will not fund it, or doing something else on the state level?
Well, we certainly hope that, and maybe the Justice Department is just delaying, and that's why they've really not gone back before Vincent and said, you know, what did you mean by this? But I thought it was pretty clear, because in his judgment, he said there is a long-standing presumption that the officials of the executive branch will adhere to the law as delivered by the court.
Wow.
As a result, the declaratory judgment that he made in the Idaho case.
Right. Well, that's what some of your colleagues, that's what some of your other colleagues as governor have relied on when they said we're not going to enforce it. We'll see where it goes. Hey, Governor Otter, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Come back again anytime you want. You don't have to go all the way to Washington to come on our show, you know.
I know, and have always been so gracious in allowing me the time and the opportunity to explain.
Thank you, Governor. Is the showdown in Wisconsin really a war on unions?